attacks caught on camera, raw, unfiltered moments where one wrong move and cost people their lives, from two teenagers provoking a bull moose to a construction worker cornered by a black bear. But first we begin in California, where a surfer's GoPro captured the brutal attack of a great white shark. It was June 3rd, 2017, off a small cove in Santa Cruz County, California. The light had barely broken the horizon, leaving the water a flat gray sheet that reflected nothing back, and the shoreline was quiet, except for the dull
Why the
hiss
fuck
of
would y'all
small
surf at
waves
night, bro?
rolling over kelp. The cove felt like a place where a miscalculation could unfold without anyone noticing until too late. Evan Dupois, 25, worked as an auto shop apprentice in Watsonville, usually taking his surfboard out before his shifts started. He was known by a few regulars on the beach as polite, quiet, and meticulous about checking tide charts and weather more than most casual surfers. His routine was simple: dawn patrol, a short loop along the outer kelp line, and a few minutes of recording on his GoPro for personal logs he rarely shared. He had taken the board out hundreds of times in similar conditions and trusted his ability
so it was
to
like
read
during
the
the day
water.
then?
The convenience of a quick session before work mattered to him, and the cove, familiar and predictable, had rarely presented problems. He had heard mentions of increased shark activity that week, but was unconcerned. Seal carcasses occasionally washed up along this stretch, and notices were often posted
I just
out
want
of
to hug
caution
one.
rather than direct threat. Whether he saw that specific advisory about a fresh carcass found the previous evening remains unclear, but his decision to surf out was consistent with his habit of continuing sessions unless conditions were outright dangerous. He wore a thin wetsuit, strapped the GPORO to the nose of his board, and walked into the cold surf with practiced confidence. Farther out, the coastline formed a natural channel where dense kelp beds bordered deeper water. This region hosts high concentrations of seals and sea lions, and great white sharks commonly patrol the edges, using contrast between light surface water and darker depths to ambush prey.
Oh,
Adult
shit.
whites
So they
in
probably
this
thought
part
he
of
was a
California
seal.
often reach 13 to 14 feet, capable of vertical breach strikes at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour. Their typical pattern, near dawn, involves silhouette-based predation, rising from below to seize what they interpret as a seal or sea lion resting near the surface. Several sea lions have been reported behaving nervously that week, avoiding
cute,
usual.
Bro. I want a pet seal. Like, look at this motherfucker. Like, these motherfuckers need to learn how to get domesticated. No cap.
All-out spots.
I'd love to have a
milling
seal.
near kelp beds. The carcass advisory suggested an active predator had fed recently, increasing the likelihood of continued passes along the same route. As Evan launched at 5:32 a.m., his visibility was limited by fog, and the low-angle light further obscured shifting shapes under the surface.
Fuck.
At 5:41 a.m., his GoPro showed multiple sea lions grouped 40 to 50 yards away, moving in tight arcs, behavior known among local surfers as a potential predation signal. He angled slightly left, but continued forward, likely interpreting them as routine early morning activity. At 5:44 a.m., a single large swirl appeared off his right rail. He looked back briefly, pausing his stroke, then resumed paddling, assuming it was a sea lion cutting beneath him. 1 minute later, the camera shook as his board rose slightly from below. The movement was abrupt, but minor, consistent with a shark bumping from beneath to investigate shape and buoyancy. Evan shifted his weight, bracing lightly, but did not express alarm. The attack began at 5:46 a.m., documented clearly by the GoPro. The board was lifted sharply as a great white, estimated at 13 to 14 feet, launched from directly underneath. The shark's head and upper body broke the surface in a near vertical strike, jaws clamping around Evan's torso. The force sent him upward, then forward into the water on the left side of the board.
Shit, so it sent
the
him into
bite
the water?
fractured ribs instantly, tearing through neoprene and compressing his chest enough to produce a sharp exhale captured faintly on audio. Water churned violently.
So it did
as the
knock
shark
him
pulled
over.
him several feet down before releasing. A common reaction in mistaken identity bites, when the shark reassesses the target's density and resistance. Evan surfaced, partially on his side, attempting to orient himself. Footage showed him attempting to stay on the board briefly, using one arm for support while the other trailed in the water, though his movements were disorganized. A wide plume of blood spread around him, fanning out through the surface layer. The shark passed beneath again, its shadow visible on the drifting camera as it circled. A bump to his right side rolled him slightly, likely triggered by involuntary thrashing or the blood dispersing faster in the cold
Damn.
water. On the second strike, the shark approached laterally, seizing his left leg just above the knee. The movement pulled him under with abrupt force, and the femoral artery was severed. The surrounding water darkened quickly. The camera, no longer stable, drifted several feet away, capturing only the disturbance of water and the faint outline of the struggle. Current carried his body a short distance toward the outer kelp line before movement slowed, consistent with local near-shore drift patterns. Within seconds, the motion slowed as Evan lost consciousness. The shark did not return a third time. The second bite appeared to be its final contact. A jogger on the bluff noticed the board drifting without a rider at 5:53 a.m. The GoPro was still recording, its angle fixed upward toward the fog. The jogger moved to a clearer vantage point, sighted no one in the water, and immediately called 911. Marine rescue units from Santa Cruz County launched within minutes and reached the area 17 minutes after the call. Rescuers located Evan floating near the kelp line, unresponsive and already deceased. A coroner report noted multiple rib fractures, deep lacerations across the torso, consistent with a single large bite, and a catastrophic vascular injury to the left leg. The cause of death was listed as exsanguination, with rapid loss of consciousness, occurring within minutes of the second strike. After the incident, the cove was temporarily closed, and local officials reinforced seal carcass advisories for early morning surfers. Evan's family held a quiet service in Watsonville, requesting privacy and declining interviews. His board and GoPro were returned to them, along with a brief report of the recovered footage. The tragedy remained a local reminder of how quickly routine familiarity with the California coast can shift into sudden,
Dang, this make me don't
danger.
even want to surf no more.
Even as
Fuck
the shark's
that.
explosive breach off California's coast demonstrated how surfers become unwitting targets. In Alberta, two teenage brothers would lure a bull moose for a video, unaware of the death sentence they just made. It was November 9th, 2018, on a rural property outside Hinton, Alberta, where the frost still clung to tire tracks and the cold air settled heavily against the tree line. The driveway security camera faced the yard as usual, capturing a scene that started as routine mischief and drifted towards something neither of the two brothers understood in time. Milo Moffat, 16, had grown up in that yard. He was a quick-moving, restless kid who liked tinkering with his family's old cameras, using the driveway angle to stage small jokes for friends. His reputation at school was harmless, the boy who made short clips of raccoons stealing outdoor cat food or deer nosing through the flower beds. He planned to take a media class the next semester and had been trying to build a small library of footage for a class project. Most of it silly, none of it serious. Because moose were a common fixture along the wildlife
You can't be fucking with
corridor
these
behind the
majestical
property,
creatures, man.
Milo and his younger brother often misjudged the danger, treating them like oversized props rather than powerful, unpredictable animals. Jarrett, 14, followed Milo's lead in most things. He admired how confidently Milo moved around the property and how casually he treated the animals that drifted through. Their parents, both working early shifts, trusted them to wait for the bus without issue. The boys had grown accustomed to the wildlife corridor that passed directly behind their property, and they assumed moose were calm and slow-moving due to frequent sightings.
Boy, what?
In reality, adult bulls in early rut can be highly unpredictable and aggressive. That morning, the yard sat under a
Aggressive as
thin layer
fuck.
of ice, the grass stiff and pale,
Man,
while the willow
hell
thickets
no.
beyond the driveway rustled lightly with the shifting air. Moose moved through that region to feed on willow shoots, and adult bulls in early November carry both heightened aggression and reduced fat stores, making their ribs faintly visible. Bulls can exceed 1,000 pounds with antlers spanning 4 to 5 feet, and charges can reach speeds over 30 miles per hour. Unlike deer, moose attack with both antlers and hooves capable of breaking bone. That morning, the boys found leftover Halloween pumpkins in the garage and carried them out to the driveway.
I know, bro. First of all, what the fuck are you doing? Hey, nah, hell no, man.
Near the camera's
Like,
range. Local advisories had noted increased moose activity due to early rut behavior, with bulls approaching driveways in search of food, though this was not widely understood by the boys. At 7:09 a.m., footage showed Milo and Jarrett laughing as they set 2 pumpkins near the garage wall, angling them so the moose would stand in frame. Their plan was straightforward: draw a moose close enough for a humorous shot of its head filling the camera. At 7:14 a.m., a large bull stepped through the willow grove, ribs faintly visible, steam drifting from its nostrils. It approached the pumpkins, lowering its head to feed. Jarrett stayed near the garage door, filming on his phone, while Milo moved forward onto a slick patch of thin
bro,
ice,
get the
reducing
back the
traction
fuck
and
up,
increasing
man.
the likelihood of an uncontrolled movement toward the bull. The bull raised its head twice, ears flicking back.
He like,
tightening,
hey, back
typical
up.
agitation signals. Milo hesitated only briefly each time, then crept another step closer, minimizing his perception of risk while appearing in frame for the camera. The moose shifted its weight, head angled, but returned to feeding. At 7:16 a.m., Milo stepped again, setting his foot onto a glazed ice patch covering frozen soil. The surface gave way slightly, pitching his weight toward the bull in an abrupt lunge. From the camera's angle, his body moved directly into the bull's field of view, closing the distance in a way that would read as an approach or challenge. The reaction was immediate and decisive. The bull's head snapped upward, and within a fraction of a second, it launched forward in a full defensive charge, covering the short distance with explosive force typical of rutting bulls. The impact drove Milo backward, slamming him into the aluminum garage door hard enough to dent 2 vertical panels. The sound carried sharply across the yard, metal folding inward under the strike. The bull pinned him there, antlers pressing into his chest. One tine punctured the upper abdomen, likely penetrating several inches, consistent with observed antler morphology. Milo's legs buckled, sliding slightly on the ice, leaving him trapped between the antlers and the door. His attempt to brace against the metal left visible smears of blood on the panel. The moose pulled back half a step, then drove forward again, lifting.
Hey man, y'all gonna need to stop fucking with these animals, bro. Like these y'all gotta know, y'all don't got no like sense of awareness, bro.
Milo off the ground by pressing with antler leverage, then dropping him onto the
Especially
ice.
the ones
Its
with
front
fucking
hooves
antlers,
struck
bro.
his rib cage in rapid succession,
Now, look,
consistent with high force blunt
Oh my
trauma.
gosh.
A second hook.
Oh my gosh, bro. Slip. That's some horror movie shit right there. Like you slipping and a nigga coming towards you.
Landed across his neck and shoulder, and his movement diminished immediately. Jarrett screamed and grabbed a snow shovel, throwing it with both hands. The shovel clattered against the moose's hindquarters, but the bull only turned briefly, ears pinned flat, then resumed stomping, delivering 3 more strikes to Milo's torso. By the 8th or 9th strike, the victim showed no signs of voluntary movement, consistent with severe trauma and rapid incapacitation. After roughly 15 seconds, the bull backed away, breathing hard, scanning the driveway. It hesitated once, then trotted toward the tree line, disappearing between the willows, its hooves cracking thin ice.
At least he
with each
stopped.
step. Jarrett ran to his brother, then recoiled, stumbling backward as he realized the extent of the injuries. At 7:18 a.m., hands shaking, he called emergency services from his phone. Police and EMS arrived 11 minutes later. They found Milo unresponsive with massive trauma to the chest, neck, and abdomen. The coroner's findings listed multiple crushed ribs, puncture wounds consistent with antler penetration, and extensive blunt force injuries from repeated hoof strikes. Death was attributed to traumatic chest compression and rapid internal hemorrhage, consistent with moose attack mechanics observed in the region. Wildlife officers emphasized that rutting bulls interpret fast, close movements as threats, and that attempting to attract them with objects or food dramatically.
I wouldn't even step to a motherfucker that look like that. Hell no. Them shit's huge, bro. Even though I never seen one, but I saw one on video and like, bro, them shit tower over cars. Big ass ant. I was not fucking with that.
Increases the likelihood of attack. Investigators also reviewed the driveway camera footage, which captured the charge and the brief struggle, and used it to verify the sequence of events. Jarrett attended several weeks of trauma counseling arranged through local services, focusing on managing intrusive memories and the sensory details he had witnessed at close range. The family fenced the willow edge later that winter to reduce wildlife access. As the moose left, a brother traumatized from his siblings' horrific, crushing death. 3 years earlier, at a North Carolina construction site, a foreman would bang on a dumpster occupied by a black bear, unaware.
What the fuck? That is so unfortunate, bro. Like, what the fuck? Like, what are the odds? Like, you just bang on a damn trash can, you see a big ass bear jump out, bro. What the fuck?
That his attempt to scare off the animal would trigger a throat-crushing mauling. It was May 14th, 2015, just outside Asheville, North Carolina. The dumpsters near a storage yard, unlatched and overflowing with contractors' discarded lunches, already bore witness to frequent black bear activity that month. The scene looked ordinary, almost mundane, but subtle signs, broken branches along the edge of the forest, paw prints pressed into the gravel, and the low rustle of unseen movement hinted at an unseen presence that could turn lethal in moments. Landon Vexler, 41, arrived that morning unaware of the precariousness awaiting him. A quiet foreman, Landon had built a reputation among his small, 5-man renovation crew as meticulous and reliable, someone who preferred action over confrontation, yet was respected for his decisiveness when pressure mounted. He worked long hours and was known to rise before dawn, often preferring to handle the messiest or riskiest tasks himself rather than delegate. Landon had moved to Asheville a decade earlier from a suburban Ohio town, drawn to the region's work opportunities in small-scale commercial renovations and the slower pace of life. He took pride in his physical skill set, hammering, welding, and the occasional heavy lifting, and had a personal code of efficiency. The task was finished, or it wasn't worth attempting. That morning, Landon wanted to clear the storage yard of old debris and secure the dumpsters so the crew could begin a siding project on an adjacent building. He carried a 30-inch metal pipe, a tool he frequently improvised for multiple purposes, and wore a heavy canvas jacket that offered minimal protection against sharp bites over work boots. His decision to personally handle the dumpster issue, rather than waiting for wildlife control, aligned with his practical but risky habit of taking direct action. Landon understood bears were present in the area, having seen tracks and torn garbage bags before, but he assumed that, as usual, a few loud shouts and noise would discourage any animal intrusions. His reasoning, grounded in routine encounters, overlooked the increasing boldness of food-conditioned wildlife. The site itself was quiet, bordered on 3 sides by dense forest with scattered pines and oaks. The morning air carried the faint scent of damp leaves and mulch, mixed with diesel from parked machinery. Black bears in North Carolina typically weigh between 150 and 300 pounds, with bite forces capable of crushing bone in defensive reactions. They are opportunistic feeders, quick to habituate to human food sources, and can react explosively if cornered or startled. Over the prior 2 weeks, workers had observed several incidents. Bears rifling through unsecured dumpsters, pausing only briefly before retreating when disturbed. A pattern of escalating comfort around humans. At 6:21 a.m., Landon, seeing the bear's refusal to leave, approached with the metal pipe in hand and struck the side of the dumpster. On the first strike, the bear flinched but remained, shifting its weight defensively. His crew called out, waving arms and banging tools against barrels, remaining near the yard's forest edge rather than directly confronting the animal. But the bear's behavior was textbook food conditioning, bold, persistent, and primed for defensive aggression. Ignoring the animal's warning signs, Landon raised the pipe for a second strike. The bear reacted instantly, leaping upward and clearing the dumpster lip in one motion. It collided with Landon chest first, knocking him backward onto the gravel-covered ground. The impact left him momentarily winded, but more dangerous was the bear's immediate follow-up. It clamped onto his throat with a deep, crushing bite, consistent with defensive reaction commonly seen in food-conditioned black bears startled at close range. Landon tried to shield his head with his arms, but the bear delivered 1 or 2 additional bites to his jaw and cheek before pivoting away. The driveway security camera captured the key moments in frame. Landon striking the dumpster, the bear vaulting over the lip, and the brief struggle on the gravel before the animal fled. The mauling lasted roughly 14 to 18 seconds. One co-worker hurled a cordless drill in an attempt to distract the animal. The bear swiped at Landon's shoulder with a powerful forelimb before retreating towards the forest, leaving him pinned and severely
They should have
injured.
jumped that bear with all them pipes, bro. Beat the shit out that damn bear.
The crack of the dumpster pipe, a heavy thud of collision and wet tearing provided forensic clarity later used to reconstruct the attack. Jason Morales, a co-worker who had remained near the yard's edge, dialed 911 immediately at 6:23 a.m. Emergency responders arrived 9 minutes later. Landon was found unconscious, with a faint pulse but extensive trauma to the head, neck, and upper torso. Despite immediate interventions, he succumbed en route to Mission Hospital. The coroner's preliminary report described the cause of death as craniofacial and cervical trauma secondary to a defensive black bear attack, noting crushing and tearing injuries consistent with documented.
After this, I'm never looking through a dumpster. I'ma just chuck that bitch, and that shit don't go in, the shit don't go in.
Bear behaviors in panic defense scenarios. Wildlife officers later tracked and euthanized a bear, matching the security footage and witness descriptions, identifying it as a food-conditioned individual whose boldness had escalated due to repeated access to human refuse. A brief regional newspaper article highlighted that improperly secured waste contributed to the incident. The family declined interviews, keeping the response subdued, consistent with Landon's quiet life. The dumpster remained on site for forensic analysis, showing puncture marks, claw scratches, and blood transfer patterns. Crew members resumed work under heightened caution, now acutely aware of the latent danger inherent in what had previously been a routine task. The incident prompted a reevaluation of local waste protocols and raised awareness among nearby crews, but the personal cost was singular and permanent. Landon's absence left an operational gap on the crew. The camera footage, preserved by authorities, became both evidence and a silent testament to the sudden, precise violence of an otherwise ordinary morning. Thanks for watching. If you liked these stories, click here.
That was insane, bro. Y'all gotta be careful, especially when we're dealing with wild animals and you live in a wild animal area, bro. Y'all be careful. But see y'all guys on the next one.